Thank you, everyone. You've joined the Why Enterprise AI Struggles with Data webinar. Originally, we were supposed to be a panel of five. The panel would have included Minal, Mark, Ben, Solomon, and myself. Due to unfortunate circumstances, two of the panel members could not join last minute. So today you're going to have Minal and Solomon and myself, and you'll get to meet Ben and Mark at a future webinar. So the first thing I would like to actually start with is a quick introduction, and we'll start with you, Minal. So, Minal, you're the SVP of Data and AI at SurveyMonkey. I think all of our listeners know what SurveyMonkey does. It's a company that many people have used over the years. But what does the SVP of Data and AI do at SurveyMonkey? What do you do?
So, hello everyone. Just before I explain what I do at SurveyMonkey, just a little bit about myself. I've been about 27 years in the space, and I have moved across multiple industries very, very intentionally so that I can help drive data-driven decision making across enterprises. Um, at SurveyMonkey specifically, I head data as well as enterprise AI. So that's all the way starting from data engineering all the way through AI ML for the enterprise. Um, it's one of the most exciting times I think that we are all living in, and specifically us being data leaders. And so, as probably the rest of the organizations are doing as well, we are at a phase of where we are bringing in AI within the organization and starting to see how we can help it kind of grow, improve effectiveness within the teams, and then make sure that the AI that we are developing essentially brings about trust both with our internal and external customers.
Fantastic. And there's some great points of view that you're going to be sharing during the webinar that I'm really looking forward to. I know some of it. I'm looking forward to be able to share it here with others. Over to Solomon. Solomon, other than being also bald and also with a beard, tell us about yourself too.
Yeah. Thank you, Yoni. So similar to Minal, I have been a long time data leader. I studied operations research in school, never expecting that it was going to lead to a new career that opened up in this funky thing called data science a couple years later. But I sort of started in finance, I switched over to tech, and then have been data science for the last almost 15 years. And then let's see, I have been the data person helping everybody. I have led small data teams. I've led big, sort of 100-person plus data teams. I have led data businesses inside a big company. I own the P&L of a data business at Nielsen. And I led data at a unicorn data startup. And then I started my own data startup called Delivery Layer, which was bootstrapped and small and has sort of shifted to a data and AI consulting company at the moment. And so I have seen all types and sizes and shapes of data problems over my data career. And I'm excited to chat about it.
Fantastic. And for those who don't know me, my name is Yoni Leidersdorf. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Solid. This webinar is not a pitch about Solid or anything like that, but rather the thinking was let's talk about what people are coming across, what people are thinking about, what is working in the data and AI space, and what is not working. You should also expect some contrarian views, some things that maybe we might disagree on, or some things that might not be the easiest to talk about. But we are here also to talk about the uneasy things in some cases. We'll start easy, and then over time we'll make it harder on all of us here in this panel. So. The top three topics we're going to be exploring, by the way, in this webinar, first of all, is real-world examples. For example, we're going to talk with Minal here on what they've been doing at SurveyMonkey, what they've been seeing actually work, what they've learned from it. We're also going to talk about some contrarian views. So, there's a lot of hype online, on LinkedIn, about AI and data. And it feels like every other person these days is building their own version of Salesforce, just vibe coding 3 hours on Lovable or whatever. And so we're here to actually set some of that straight and also talk about what's not working or overhyped or is actually an issue. And then we're also going to talk a bit about the reality of data teams. Data teams, we've been around for many years. The challenges have evolved, and data teams today have new challenges, new things that they need to deliver, new things they may be on the hook for. So it's really important that we cover that as well. So those are going to be our three topics today on the webinar. You are very, very welcome to ask questions through the Q&A system. And we're going to be getting to the Q&A later in this webinar. And so you can already write them out and share them, and we'll get to them as we progress here. Okay. So with that, let's dive straight into it. So Minal, last week, your team at SurveyMonkey had a hackathon. And I was invited. Had the pleasure of being on the demo part of it. And I saw the CEO of SurveyMonkey get excited by what he was seeing, which is amazing. Um, tell us a bit about what you guys built in the hackathon and maybe why EJ, the CEO, was excited.
Yeah, so a little bit of a story as to how we got into enterprise AI at SurveyMonkey itself. So, like all of you, when ChatGPT came by, and then the hype about AI started, there was obviously nervousness. And as a data leader, the first thing you have to do is like to calm yourself and see where this can actually bring about change within your organization. And that's the first thing that I essentially had to do is I had to calm myself and say that, hey, there's an opportunity here. You just have to calm down to figure out what the opportunity is. The second is to identify like who actually to listen to. Because you have a whole bunch of influencers, and who do you start paying attention to? So I picked a couple of podcasts and a couple of people that I wanted to follow. And I've obviously increased my list since then, but I started listening very actively to them. And then as I started listening, the roadmap essentially started forming in my head, and we started working towards the roadmap. Um, when I built the roadmap out, the strategy was awesome. But you have to bring not only the organization along, but first I have to bring my team along and get my team very confident in terms of what I am building towards. And so I started first with an AI academy. And I said, you know what? Let me upskill y'all by giving y'all training in the concepts of AI. And let's get started that way. It wasn't successful because you just can't teach people and then expect them to just pick up on it and then start executing on it. They need to understand truly as to what's there. And like everyone else, they were also fearful that if we start doing this, is it going to take our jobs away? And so I had to change a little bit of my methodology in terms of how I could push AI within the organization. And so I said, you know what? We do an annual hackathon every year. Let's do like this virtual mini AI hackathon. The only thing that you have to do is your project has to be a project which essentially has AI within it. I did not set any rules. I said, obviously, it has to be something that serves the business or helps build a process or augments, does whatever. I set no rules. Typically for the hackathons, I'm involved in curating the projects. In this one, I said, just go crazy. Think about, where or what you have the opportunities for. It was 4 hours on a Friday. That's all I gave them. They were able to join in teams of four, and it was essentially for the whole team. The most surprising thing was that everything that I expected out of the AI Academy, this small 4 hour hackathon just completely 1000x'd it. It automatically put them in the shoes of, okay, what they would do if really, AI came to them and what they have the ability to do. And so after that, my team just said, okay, we now fully understand as to how and where we can bring AI within what we do. Now, the very important thing in terms of the mindset shift that happened here was they didn't look at AI simply as a technology or focusing on the fact like, oh my God, there is like this model, this is what this model can do. They thought about where exactly you can apply AI within where they work. They identified the friction that they were feeling and then said, okay, this is where we want to apply AI. It doesn't matter whether ChatGPT is going to do it or Claude is going to do it or Gemini is going to do it. We just need to know that this is a problem. Can this problem be fixed using AI? That was the big unravel, and that was the big mindset shift that happened. And once that took place, you know, it I just was able to walk them through again. Okay, this is what my vision for AI for the enterprise looks like, and this is how we need to begin with. The hackathon that Yoni alluded to essentially is the annual hackathon we run as part of the onsite that we do annually as well. And for this, what we do is we take our four core business functions of marketing, product, sales, and customer. And I told the teams, okay, you did the mini hackathon, you identified friction there. How can we then extend this into business workflows for each of these business functions? And what can we do and build and show? Now, typically, our hackathons are not demos, they are prototypes that are actually built out, and we just do presentations on top of it. So, this was the first time also that we did or were able to showcase demos of the hackathon projects itself, which was really, really cool. And I can't give you like full details of what came out, but it solved a lot of problems. And in terms of problems, one is it helped create efficiency in how the teams would potentially operate. It would help improve the way, help improve reduce churn for us. It also improved, like in some projects, essentially, there was no distinction between if a junior person or a senior person was doing the job. The AI essentially took the responsibility of determining what the playbook would be, and the junior person could just pick up and take the decision-making skills of the senior person and essentially apply. And when all of these projects were presented, it became very hard, even for our CEO and the other judges, to essentially determine who the winner was. And so, for the first time, we had a tie. It has never happened, but that also talks to the craziness of how these projects evolved. And then the second cool part that happened is that all of these projects were very actionable. And the first question that came out of our judges was like, hey, when can this go into production? Like, can you all productionalize this soon? And when can we start seeing like the results and the outcome of this? So very successful. I think if we really, everyone just kind of sets their mind to it and has a clear understanding of where exactly AI can fit in within their workflows, within their roadmaps, AI is something that can really accelerate growth, revenue for the organizations. It can really augment employee productivity. And then, of course, as I said, like everything centers around trust. And within your roadmap, as long as you ensure that that trust component is built within the workflow, you have something that you can really succeed with.
That's amazing. So basically, you took a failure of, you were trying to train people on AI, they couldn't figure it out. And then, when you forced them to actually work with it, they came out with amazing things. And then they were able to take that a step further. I think one of the really interesting things I saw in the hackathon last week is that they always tied it back to business impact. So every deck, the last few slides were, and this is how many millions of dollars we estimate this agent that we built here would impact. And I think that was very much also part of probably what caught the attention of the judges. Even one of them was like, well, when is it going to be in production? And the response was, well, this is actually already in production. We built it over the last 2 days and it actually works and delivers value. And that's insane. So that's really good to hear. And obviously there's, the journey of how to get there. Solomon, what do you think about what Minal just described? Like, is it typical or are you seeing other things or what's your reaction to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is not surprising that the best way to get people to understand how to use AI effectively is to actually have them build things as opposed to, think about AI. I think that a lot of the technology is easily accessible in a way that, like, if it's not like you need to spend 6 months learning linear algebra before you can understand how to implement these types of AI products. It is it is a 20 to $200 monthly subscription that you can cancel at the end of the month if you're not interested to sign up for a lot of these products. And I think it is so easy to just like go and try to do things. And then when you get stuck, that's when you go and try to learn how to get unstuck. And it's no surprise that once people sort of unlock that, it gets really easy. Actually, speaking of given the topic of this is using AI in enterprise. I have a friend at a very, very big enterprise company that is highly restrictive over the types of things that they can use. And he's not a data friend. Although he's like a quasi data person, but he works in like a finance org high up in like a very, very, very big company. And we were talking and he was talking about how he has this big Excel thing and he wishes he could sort of like build an app for it. And I was like, have you tried Claude Code? And he said, no, I haven't tried it yet. There's no way I'm going to be able to do it, to use it in my organization. And I was like, well, do you have a license for OpenAI maybe? Because if you do, then you can use Codex, which is very similar. And he's like, actually, yeah, I do. Actually, that's like through my security, like I can actually just install it and use it right now. He's not even he's just like a person at a big company who happens to work with a lot of finance data, like a quasi data person. And he installed it and he built an app and then he's like open sourced a version of it. He's like a, mid 40s business finance data quasi. He's not like a data person, but he just like went out and did it. And so, yeah, I think Mina, back to your original question, Yoni, this idea of just like start putting stuff in people's hands and tell them go build something. And it is shocking how far you can get with just like a little bit of help here and there.
Um, so all this is very nice stories. What have you seen fail miserably? Like, what have you seen, maybe Solomon to you, of like, people that you've seen try things and just completely blew up in their face and, AI didn't work or the organization didn't let it go. What do you think? What have you seen on that side?
Yeah, I mean, so the things that I think fail a lot are some of the like big top-down initiatives where people don't understand what they're getting into in terms of the trade-offs that they're making with AI. So, for example, a good one for this is and this is like especially over the last couple years when ChatGPT first came out, the one of the things that people were most excited about was, oh, we can get rid of our customer success teams because ChatGPT is this tool now that lets us draft automatic customer responses in a more flexible way that snippets couldn't previously in these systems. And so why don't we just like now we have our initiative. We've got a $100 million line item budget for our customer success team. We're going to cut that by 80% by going with this vendor who is going to replace all of our customer success agents with AI. And the challenge is that, especially at that point, AI was 80% of what people could do. Maybe it's 85 or 90% at this moment, but it's not 100. And those critical gaps, people make, these systems make mistakes, and sometimes those are highly visible or highly disruptive mistakes. And somebody says, "Oh, we had this huge operating plan. We were going to cut this dramatically. We tried it with AI. The POC was a disaster." Especially in an enterprise world where mistakes are career killers for many people, not mistakes aren't something that you trade off effectively versus a benefit. And so and then they got pulled and then people got burned by AI. And now they're a little bit nervous to go back in because they had these big hopes and dreams and then the reality didn't catch up. I don't know, Minal, I'm sure you've got your own flavors of this one also.
Yeah, so for us, when we started like with our AI journey, so one of the simplest things, well, I figured out that we could do is, you just slap a GPT on top of your data and, hey, you'll have something to talk to your data with. Obviously, I was fully wrong. I knew I was going to be wrong, but I was fully wrong. The challenge was that obviously, you put it, the GPT tries to understand the best thing out of the data, but it truly doesn't have business sense or business context. And so when we originally started, the accuracy of what the GPT would spit out was, like 20%, and even actually probably lesser in some cases, even though, we had a single data set, it was a very well curated data set. There was a semantic layer sitting underneath it, the columns were very well defined and very well named. And in spite of that, you know, the GPT used to hallucinate. And when we got to like the bottom of it, we realized that, we had to be really good in our prompting and set the context of what the data is and set it in such a way that it fully understands not only the nature of the data set, but the business context around which that data set was built and operated under. And I know Yoni said we shouldn't be promoting Solid, but Solid came in and Solid became the tool that helped us build that context intelligence for our data sets itself. So once we started defining our business rules, we started defining, the decision logic that appears across the organization. We have data that essentially not only sits within database, but there's context that exists in Confluence, there's context that exists in Jira, that's in Slack. How do you bring all of that together? Because a consolidation of all of that together forms the context for an enterprise or for the organization. So how do you bring all of that together? And that's where kind of Solid came in and started helping build out that context, control and context layer for us that we use then very effectively to put the GPTs on. And now our accuracy is up to what, Yoni, 92%.
Mhm.
Against the data sets, and which is very, very impressive if you go to think about it. Like, I don't believe that anyone has gotten to that level of an accuracy. So one lesson that we took from it was that context is really important, and so we try our best, as we prompt these systems, is to apply that context as much as possible and provide information as much as possible so that whatever is whatever comes out as an output is appropriate. So now, I have a person who is in a very tactical role asking a question, and he or she essentially gets that very tactical response, very associated with their role and their job. While if an executive or someone comes in, then that person also has the ability to get the responses that he or she is looking for. It's a work in progress, it is going to evolve, but the key lesson out of all of this is that context and or that decision control layer is something that needs to absolutely be set up in order for you to start seeing like effectiveness around this. And that is also very key as you start to build workflows out of this also, because decision workflows are going to happen. So you're going to take decision based on certain outputs that are coming out of these conversational intelligence layers, and those decisions also need to be something that has to be managed somewhere and controlled somewhere. And so it's very, very important that all of this is set up as you build it out. Otherwise the AI doesn't know how to react, and it will do the next best thing, which is hallucinate. It's going to try to take an action. And so you have to be very careful as you set this up. But for us, that was one of our bigger lessons that we learned. And I'm sure there is a lot more that we are going to fail in, as we go deeper and deeper into our roadmap. But this was like a big, big, big lesson that we learned.
Yeah. Thank you for the shout outs and solid saves the day and all that. So um, context drives success in these things. You said 98% and 92% accuracy. What happens with the 8%? So if your agent now delivers things for people to make decisions, do you go and tell the people, well, you can only trust it 92% of the time, you need to introspect it, or how do you help people deal with the fact that this thing is not 100% precise, it's 92?
So we do have the disclaimer that, it's an AI. And so, just always make sure that the output is right. Um, we are not going to get to 100%. That's not my goal. This is not a financial system. I don't intend for it to be a financial system. That's the reason why dashboards are not going to die, right? Like people keep saying dashboards are going to die. They are not. they still provide a purpose. And, that purpose is going to be where you need like audit reports, compliance reports, financial reports, and that sort of a thing. This is very, very good in order for more thought leadership and thought partnership with your data itself. It's also very supportive of any data literacy that you want to do within the organization. There are folks who don't understand your data. They don't understand the context around your data. And, with AI coming in, that becomes, more and more simpler to do. And it's very much more easier to kind of democratize this across the organization itself. So, again, it's an AI. You can only trust it so much. So the way we utilize the AI is not, again, as I said, for any sort of like financial reporting, but we use it for, any kind of strategic decision making. So for example, if our data goes across or spans across multiple subject areas, then it has the ability to create associations that you typically may have missed out on. I'm not saying those associations will always be 100% accurate, but they are things that you didn't think about. And, it helps you kind of step into those areas that traditionally would have been lacking or missing unless you have like a super analyst or something um, on your team. Also, what it does, it looks for like missed and or lost opportunities within your data. It's really good also to look at like really massive and large data sets and start identifying and looking for patterns within them that you can then further drill down or dig into if required. It also gives you the ability to have continuous conversation. So the one thing that lacks with dashboards is, it has a limit to what it can provide to you. This is almost limitless to that point. Is you can continue the conversation, and it always has the whole context of everything that you are talking about. So in that sense, there are those differences, but again, I don't think anyone should go and try to aim for 100%. 92 is awesome. And, if we can get to 94, 95, okay. But, I'm not aspiring for it to become 100% at any point.
Yeah, I mean, are human analysts 100%? Are human analysts better than 92%? How often do you get back something from an exec that says, hey, these numbers look super off, and then there's a bug in there? Probably once every 10 times at
Yeah.
least. So, yeah.
100%, yes.
Solomon, what like in your experience as you've led data organizations, etc., what do you think is the accuracy of human analysts? If you had to put a number to it, and I know it's kind of hard to measure, especially retroactively, but Solomon, if you had to put a number to it, what would it be?
I mean, the interesting thing is that we expect AI to go through a different process than people do. So if I were to say what percentage of data that goes out to people is accurate, it's generally high, but it's not high because the first time someone pulled it, it was accurate. It's high because over time, people go back and forth and cross-check the data through various different systems, and it's audited. And if the data report in the BI tool doesn't match QuickBooks or doesn't match NetSuite or doesn't match the bank account, then it gets found over time. And so as a result, I think that certain data sets go through a period of intense scrutiny, which makes them better, and then they become sort of fully baked and highly accurate. And so those, those are highly accurate. And then, how often do data people get something misconstrued in a conversation with their business stakeholders where they pull something differently or they pull a different metric or they do something in a different way that people didn't expect and need back and forth with the data, that the data isn't perfect the first time they send it? Probably not perfect just as often as it is perfect. It's probably 50% that first time. I don't know, Minal, if that resembles your experience also. Maybe 70% if you're 80% if you've worked at the company for a really long time. But most data people already know you need to schedule a meeting with the business stakeholder to go over the data to make sure that it's right, because they know this isn't some mistake that data people are doing. It's just the nature of communication is that oftentimes you think that it's happened, but it hasn't happened the way that you think. And so they thought they told you something, you thought you heard something, and then later on you get together to understand where there are gaps. That's like a normal thing. You don't get that as much with an AI system. So we're judging off of like different processes, and it's a little bit of apples to oranges.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I agree with you. I fully agree with you. My analysts still make mistakes and can make mistakes. And so will the AI. Even with this 92% accuracy, it could potentially make a mistake somewhere because it just missed like an edge case context that we didn't consider. So, in that respect, we have to consider it as such and allow grace for those kind of mistakes as well, as long as we are able to identify it and then address it, in an elegant fashion, for sure. But yes, it's going to behave in that sense. It's going to very much behave like a human. And that's why, it's good. You have human validation happening. AI is giving you the results, but then at the end, you are the one who kind of is able to pull out anything that does not make sense or doesn't look good. So, even when we were at 20% accuracy, we were the ones who were like, oh my God, there's no way these numbers are the real ones. And we didn't just blindly trust the data itself. And so that's going to be the nature of how all of these are going to operate. But, you need to have observability in place, the ability to track these more effectively. The funny thing and the most ironic thing of it is that right now, a lot of that observability is also AI driven. So,
And more.
that's going to be that's going to be the fun part of it. But let's see how that goes, and what kind of, again, oversight that we need to put on top of the observability itself. But
AI watching AI. It's like,
exactly, what could go wrong?
yeah, exactly. By the way, this accuracy topic is getting a lot of questions. I'm monitoring the questions, the Q&A here on my right screen. And it's funny how like as we started talking about accuracy, I started getting like like all these questions because accuracy apparently is a hot topic. How do you measure accuracy? What does it mean? What do you put in the middle? Is accuracy even the right term? Maybe, we should think about what's called precision and recall in the world of RAG, for example. Um, one thing that I find myself talking a lot with people is Waymo. So those who are not in San Francisco, LA, Austin, etc., may have not experienced Waymo yet, but Waymo is Google's Uber without a driver, basically. And I've taken many Waymo trips, and I've been telling people, hey, I've got a 14-year-old daughter. I feel more comfortable putting her in a Waymo than in an Uber. And they're like, okay, you're completely crazy. Now, when you think about accuracy, so in the world of Waymo, you measure number of crashes and so forth per mileage. And so you have the Waymo data. I'm going to share it here for a second for those who are unfamiliar with this. Now, Waymo in up to December 2025, so this is like a few months back, you can see that they've driven in LA about 38 million miles, 53 million, Phoenix 68, Austin, or you can round it up a bit. So we're talking about a couple 100 million miles here. And then across the couple 100 million miles, and just to think about it, I drove in my life about 500,000 miles. Okay. So it's at least that's my estimate. So it's probably the lifetime driving of 400 people or so. Now, I've made mistakes. I've had crashes. I totaled a Highlander. So, you know, my stats are maybe not that great. You're better off in a way more than with me, probably. But if you look at this, 92% cost crash reductions, 83% less, fewer airbag deployments. Like these are real numbers. So, it's a way to measure AI. So it's not 100% reduction. Waymo is not going to be right 100% of the time. And sometimes I've seen Waymo being in it or from the outside stuck in very weird situations and it didn't know how to handle. But at the overall, it's much, much safer, better, etc., versus the average human driver in these metro areas. So when you kind of look at that, my sentiment is that there are various ways to measure AI, and just straight up, I asked it a question and did it provide the right answer might not be the only way to do it. What do you guys think about this?
Okay. And I kind of provided my take on it. It's an AI. And like a human, it is going to have you know, times of ineffectiveness, and times of mistakes and errors. And that's okay as long as you're able to know and identify it. Uh, It also could be human initiated, because if you haven't asked the right prompt, you are probably not going to get the response. But the awesome part with it is that you have an ability to chat with your data, so you can fix your prompt, you can make it more appropriate to get the answer as much as possible. In terms of the accuracy of 92% that we talk about, similar to how you would ensure that, the data pipelines that you are running on a regular basis is, still maintaining that same profile, every day as you push changes in, is running, you need to set like a regression set of questions to ensure that the AI is always kind of behaving and providing that deterministic output and continues to provide it, because that's how you kind of keep a watch on your data as you make changes, and that's how you keep a watch on your AI as you make changes itself. So for your organization, again, for us, my purpose is to democratize the data, have more people get access to the data, and basically start to take decisions using the data itself rather than using it for financial planning or that sort of a thing, right? I have dashboards available for that, and my team provides training. The second is, I don't know how many of you have actually done literacy within organizations, but literacy is a very, very strenuous process to get people educated in terms of how to read data, how to understand data, and get them to the point of where they are able to make decisions through data. And with AI, that has completely minimized. So when I look at it, like when I do or check like the balance of it, it's similar to how Yoni says. It's like I prefer it much more to me sitting down and running a whole data literacy program. I can have the AI do it more effectively, is like similar to, putting a Waymo in and, versus an Uber itself. And that's how at least I look at it. And it depends again on the application that you are actually using the AI for. And you have to scope the accuracy or how you intend to utilize it within the organization based on that. So, just because I say 92% doesn't mean like, all of you tomorrow say, hey, she said 92% and 92% works. And we all should be fine. It's going to be, each of you is going to have your specific use case, and y'all are going to operate based on that. And just so y'all know, even the chatbots that operate on, all of these different websites, they do not have an accuracy rate of beyond 86%. So just FYI, just in case you thought that those AIs were really good and you're at some point going to get to really awesome outcomes, there is going to be limits to which it can do certain things and answer. And you have to know and understand that and make sure that you are covered for it.
Great. I have a question for you, Solomon. So one of Solid's investors says that selling products to data people is really, really, really hard because data people know about all the issues, like the quality issues, the data that's missing. They know the problems, they know where the, the things are buried, etc. But also data people take on upon themselves a lot of risk by delivering things like what Mina was talking about. Because if the AI gets things wrong, if it hallucinates, if somebody, they heard what Minal said about 92%, but they still made a decision and they didn't factor in enough human thinking into it, they may say, oh, it's the data people's fault. Or, if you look back, people say, oh, our BI is off, it's the data people's fault. So data people are used to being on the receiving end of some bad feedback. And then they know also all the complexity, but at the same time, they're being pushed to or desire to deliver AI. How should a data leader navigate this, Solomon? Like, this sounds very stressful, if, from my perspective, at least.
Yeah. Data is an interesting profession because the dynamic that you just described, it's kind of like bowling, right? Like every time you go bowl, the expectation is that you're going to get a strike or you're going to get all 10 pins down. And anytime you don't get all the 10 pins down, anytime it's not perfect, that's you not achieving your goal. And that happens all the time, every single day in many different ways. And from a business user perspective, they just want good data all the time, whatever they want, however they want it, whatever they want. They just want it to be true. They don't want it to be mistakes. So it's like you don't get credit for like the good. You only notice when it's bad. So it's not like they pull 100 numbers and you get 100 great jobs and then one number is bad and then they tell you, oh, you did something wrong. It's like, no, you get silence 100 times because you're just doing your job like you were expected to do. And then the only time you messed up, it's like, dude, the only conversation we have, every time I talk to you, you're messing up somehow. All right. Back to this Waymo example. One of the challenging things with AI, or one of the things that data people do provide to an organization, is having someone to blame. Like that's like a reality of corporate life that is important because a lot of business leaders don't want to take the blame for if what they do is wrong because the numbers are wrong. Well, why are the numbers wrong? Because I use some AI tool. They don't want the blame for that. They want to be able to have someone take that responsibility. Um, and it's understandable why they do because they don't feel equipped to navigate this in an effective way. I um, I, as a data leader, try to get out of this dynamic as much as possible because it's a failing dynamic just at its core. And by the way, another interesting thing beyond just data people being extremely tough to buy from because for various reasons, it seems a cost center, they oftentimes don't have budget, like they have huge budgets and then also at the same time no budgets outside of like a couple of big tools that are also big because you've got all this data and you're paying how much for Snowflake, and so like you're literally not getting anything else, or Databricks or whatever it is. And then also selling business tools into data teams because I am friends with many AI founders who just sell business solutions, but they're AI. And so they're all like, should we get in touch with like the data team leaders at these companies? They're probably involved in AI. And the prevailing wisdom in those communities of startup, if you're selling, legal AI tech for a legal team or HR tech or whatever, it's like you cannot deal through the data teams because they're not connected enough to the business. It's sort of like you don't know what their relationship is with the business people, and they can only say no, but they can't say yes. You're better off just going into selling to a business team. Um, and the reality is, and it's not easy to do because some organizations have this structure, and breaking out of that structure is very difficult. But from how do you avoid this? Is you need to be winning in a public way with important business stuff. So it's like if your company has a couple really big initiatives, you've got to find a way for data to be an important part of those bigger company initiatives, not in its own silo where you can only be judged against perfection of delivering perfect data. It has to be like the company is trying to increase revenue by 20%. We've got 13 really big enterprise accounts. We need to close 8 of the 13 in order to hit our numbers. If we do, then we're all gonna stay employed on the executive team. And if we don't, then we're in trouble. And you need to get data to be a strategic partner for that in a way that it's like, I don't care about whether it's 92% or 100% or 60% accuracy, because the benefit that I'm getting from having a data partner is helping me close these 8 deals. I truly don't care about the accuracy, like, because the data team got me a better list to go talk to people, or pulled all of this background data on really important information on all of these companies. And yes, it wasn't perfect, but like because of this data, it opened the door to the conversation with the CFO, and that's what helped us close the deal. Like if you're in that world, seriously, nobody is going to bother you about accuracy. And if you're stuck in the world of of I just need to deliver perfect data to everybody that asks anytime they ask, then you can literally never win. So that's my rant on how to get out of that that
I got you to really
slump.
rant. I like this is a passionate thing that you care about and bothers you. I love that. You went from people measuring us the wrong way, right? Like if you're measuring a person and they need to get a strike every single time, it's that's very difficult. And if data is data people are the kind of people to blame when these things don't work. And your point is we have the conversation all wrong. We data people, somehow find ourselves being measured by something that you can never 100% win at. And it's frustrating. And instead, if we go towards let's focus on what the business is trying to achieve and help the business achieve it and not get measured on the accuracy of a widget on Tableau in the top left that or top right that nobody even looks at, rather measured on the impact on the business and our ability to support that, then we can change the game. And then we data people can be more heroes and also a bit more less defensive maybe in some areas. um I'm getting a ton of questions here. We're hitting really interesting points for people. So one of the questions I'm getting here is from Guy is, as data leaders, where do we draw the line between the urge to democratize data, specifically with AI, and our core values such as unified data platform, data governance, and avoiding siloed solutions? So there's okay, so let's say the data leader is thinking a lot more on business impact versus just the accuracy part. But we're like, how do we balance between the urge to accelerate data in AI versus the need to make sure that the data is high quality and governed correctly, et cetera, and avoiding silos? Um, which of you wants to take that one?
Okay. I think it all starts with a very solid data foundation. So your unified data platform is something that is going to become the foundation of anything that you build with AI. At SurveyMonkey, we had that solid data foundation, so we could begin to put AI on top of it. So yes, that's going to be required, at least, from your key metrics standpoint for the organization, you need to have that very well governed. Um, and essentially all of the metrics very consistent across how they are defined within the organization. And you need to have those very, very clearly defined um, for the organization itself. So that's a given. You cannot escape that. The second part of it, as I said, is you are going to need to prioritize. I'm sure that not all of your data is necessarily in disarray. You probably have, subject areas of your data which are in a clean state. You could start using or putting your AI, whatever you want to do with AI or help solve with AI on those specifically. So, if you kind of balance or manage your roadmap and your resources accordingly, I'm sure you can help the organization accelerate using AI as well as, continue to maintain the unification of the data and the governance itself, for the systems that need it. AI is not going to function really well in silos. As I said, context is very, very important. So it is essential for it to have the ability to tie across. And if you have data sets very specifically in silos, which are key to a lot of the understanding of the business, it just becomes much, much more helpful if it kind of stays in the same way. Now, that being said, you don't necessarily have to have the most elegant semantic layer. Your context layer can substitute for it. And when we define the context layer, we put a lot of that semantics on top of the context layer. So, you don't have to make it perfect. Have your data organized in a place where it's readily accessible. It has the ability to talk, connect to each other. It's accurate as much as possible. And all of those things. And then, as I said, again, I'm not trying to sell Solid, but a tool like Solid essentially can come and help accelerate that journey for you, where it helps create that context layer that you can put the AI on top of. But, as a data leader, it's going to be on you to kind of balance and understand as to where your data foundation is solid to be able to bring AI in versus where it is going to need help, where you are going to need to merge and or bring silos in. So that is work that is probably every organization is going to have to do.
Yeah, and interestingly, this is one area where we probably disagree, and I have a non non-conventional approach, which is I think that AI should bring in silos everywhere to a certain extent because it achieves the end goal that we data people have always said that we wanted, which is people are using data everywhere. And like a random marketing manager just doing stuff should be able to use AI to do way more than they could ever have done before. Who cares if that's connected to the data team? In fact, many times it shouldn't be connected to the data team. And to me, it's sort of like a natural consequence. It's a trade-off, but it's not a bad thing. And so to me, the important part is just giving everybody full knowledge walking in of like, this is what the data team platform enterprise is going to support, and this is what we're not going to support. And if you continue down this path, you should continue down this path. And also, here's the natural consequence, which is you're going to want to tie in certain data sets. That's going to be tough. So just don't expect to do that, but go and do your thing and like build a silo. It's okay. I'm okay with silos. I think that silos are way better than people not using data, which is the situation that happens when we tell people they can only use data in these pre-approved ways. And I think there's a 90-10 where like you can't let people be totally unhinged. And but in general, you can provide the latitude for people to go off and build and do things. And you're probably because the problem is back to measuring data teams because we measure mistakes, but we don't measure missed opportunities, it's very easy to see the mistakes. But how do you offset that with how much worse the company is because you're limiting all of these people at the edges from being a lot better at what they do? And my belief is that we are the dollar value of the mistakes that we're making by not enabling these people to go off and do more is far higher than the pain of the data inconsistencies that we have to deal with on the back end.
Okay, I don't think we have enough time for me to actually argue this because I have a very strong argument against everything that you have said, Solomon. Not against productivity, not against people actually being efficient. But the fact that you need centralization is because there needs to be a central source of executive reporting. When you drive strategy, you need to all work off of a singular number. It's not that marketing can work off of its known number and finance can work off of its own. So I'm very sorry, but I do not subscribe to your way of thinking. It has been tried in organizations and have been brought in to basically consolidate like 30 different teams who were operating in silos. It was a mess. It was a literal mess. So, no, it won't work. And I'm not saying that the bringing the central data team doesn't create inefficiencies, but if you really do it well, you have the ability to create a centralized and then a decentralized structure that can operate really well, ensuring that people are all working off of the same numbers. So, long conversation, and I think you and I both really need to chat after this, but this
Sure.
this time is not enough. And Yoni, you should have asked this question first.
Ha
Uh,
ha ha.
I love it. And it's, in the data, so there are all these sort of religious discussions in the data world. One of them is to centralize or to decentralize, to break silos, to get everyone on the same metrics or not. Like these have been over the years. And it's funny, as you guys were talking, somebody literally just asked, how much should we let individuals create their own things versus try to centrally control it? And you both touched on that. So clearly there's, different perspectives, and it's obviously up to the audience what they want to go with. There are advantages and risks, right? If you centralize it and you do have the time to clean it all up, etc., you're more likely creating reliable data that you are then building AI on top of. At the same time, getting everyone aligned is probably not possible. And also, it takes time to get there. So there's a balance. Whereas Solomon's approach is, well, let's let people run further and go further so that they can see the value of AI. And then our value as the data team could grow through that instead of getting measured on the accuracy. So it's a really interesting and somewhat religious.
It
And
works.
by the way,
Okay.
we're probably not as, sometimes these things are framed as binary
Yeah,
things. There's a
exactly.
spectrum. Let me
Red or
be clear.
blue.
Let me be clear. I imagine that for financial reporting that goes out to the street, we are all on the
Yeah,
same page
yeah.
that, the ERP systems and the various different data transformations that go into, filing SEC reports need to go through a non-vibe coded, AI coded process where it is exact. And there are other use cases where traditionally people have not been able to operate independently, where you get a lot of benefit from operating independently. But we definitely can have this
Yeah.
I
we
know.
could have
I have a
the
lot to
back
say,
and
Solomon.
forth
I have a
in
lot to
webinar
say.
too.
That sounds like we need an episode two, and
Yeah,
hopefully
right.
we'll have Mark and Ben join us on episode two of of AI and data. One question so there's a ton of questions here, but I picked one of them because we only have a couple minutes. Sonia is saying, I find that explainability is key to adoption. I agree that building context is 100% key. How do you put this into language that helps the business understand why they should trust your answer and how they can explain it if they are challenged? So, the AI is responding something. Obviously, you can show the SQL query, right? But many times the business doesn't really know what the SQL query even means. And nobody, I think that by the end of this year, nobody's going to be reading or writing SQL queries anymore. It's all AI is going to be on top of all of that. So, how do you help the business user understand what was the source of the data, or how was the conclusion presented to them so that they understand the logic behind it for themselves, but also if they need to explain it onwards? How do you deal with that?
So there is still education for this. All of this just doesn't get pushed down to the user. There is going to be an understanding in terms of the data sources that were used and that they were validated data sources. Case in point, Solomon, for why you need centralization. And they are going to need that education so that they actually understand that what this output is going to look like, irrespective of the questions, what the scope of the output is going to look like, what are the kind of prompts that they could put, and what is going to come out of the AI. So that education still continues to exist, and you are going to need to continue to have that. So we have office hours that we run for all of the conversational intelligence layers that we have put out. And those office hours are precisely for this purpose, where the business folks can come in and ask any questions or understand as to, where or what they did not get from the AI itself. And then to Yoni's point, yes, we have an opportunity to actually put the SQL there. It helps analysts because analysts know and understand what the data structures potentially look like. We also have on the side, we show also the tables that were actually used, if that helps with a little bit of a description of the tables that were used to build this data set out. And then you can ask questions and tell it, explain it to me like I'm five or something, right? You can still use the capabilities of a typical LLM and ask it to explain it to you. The context helps it to understand the business context and then explain it to you in a way that you can actually explain. Or you can say, hey, you know what? I'm a marketing person. I don't understand the data. Can you explain it to me in my terms? And it has the ability to explain that. But you have to put some work into making sure people understand that what this specific layer is intended to do, and the purpose and the scope of it, so that they can work within that scope. And then the office hours, which I'm sure all of you already have, if you want to explain dashboards, or if folks have questions as regard in relation to your dashboards or regards to your data itself. So this is just going to be another of those data products that you are pushing out.
Fantastic. I think those office hours are key, right? It's part of building the right relationship and service with people. Okay, we're out of time. The question keep coming, but maybe we'll need to touch on them in another session. But maybe just to wrap up, if you had to have people walk away with a sentence or two from this thing, and what you think, what you recommend them to focus on over the next few months as they're thinking about AI and their data, what would be their one or two senses? Let's start, Solomon. Let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say all the way back to the beginning of the story that Minal told about the hackathon, right? It's sort of like the thing to do is to like try things. There, as much as listening to people with different points of view or the same points of view on webinars is helpful for bringing in some context. You should get out there and build things and see what works or what doesn't work for various different use cases, and you'll learn more in a day of building things than you're not even gonna realize it's gonna click or not click. But go do that and then bring in information to sort of help you as you build.
Okay. Go do, basically.
Pretty
What
Yeah.
about you,
much. Yeah.
Mina?
Yeah, for me, it's like start small. So, don't try to boil the whole ocean. Start small. Um, I have a blog written on like how you can get started if you're very specifically a data leader, like how you can start thinking about where and how the opportunities to start small are. So, get started. You probably have a small data set that is already curated. Look at the opportunity to see how you can actually put a GPT on top of it, help it drive decision making or get it inserted into a workflow and kind of grow from there. And then, as Solomon said, right, like start applying it to where y'all are working and see where the opportunities lie. Focus, as I would say, AI is a technology, but it will enable. But your strategy still needs to be solid so that you can, move forward and actually grow with what the data and AI provide to you. The second piece is the data is the one that actually provides real value. AI is going to help you enable that and push that or accelerate that. So, if you are very clear about the value of what your data is able to provide, then putting an AI on top of it is just like how you would bring your typical technology on top of it. So, you'll have to do the work similar to how you push out your data products within the organization. But yes, start small. You don't have to like do everything. Don't worry. All enterprises are going through this journey and everyone is learning as they go. Data leaders are learning as they go, and so don't feel overwhelmed and think that you are very far behind. Google ran a survey and apparently only 0.04% of the world population is actually familiar with AI. So just know you're part of that very small population, and so you have a little bit of time, and this one nothing is going to go away. So
Fantastic. Good. So to summarize our webinar, first of all, just do it. Start getting into it. Start small. Don't believe all the FOMO. Just, get into it, get practice, use whatever tools are approved in your organization. If there aren't any, then maybe do some experiments on your own on the side with non-organization data so that you can get your hands dirty, but get your hands dirty. Don't boil the ocean. I think those are great, great, great points. Minal and Solomon. Oh, by the way, for the audience, please find Minal and Solomon on LinkedIn and follow them. They have a lot of great things that they're sharing on an ongoing basis. So more insight like what we had here would be on there. I'd like to take the moment to thank both of you very, very much for participating in this webinar today. I learned stuff as we went through it, and I really appreciate you doing this.
thank you
Thank
for
you
the
for inviting us.
opportunity.
This is great.
Yeah.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. See you on the next webinar. Bye-bye.
Bye.